You turn the screen face down, and the room cools by a degree. The air thickens. Your thumbs ache for the quick reply that buys 10 minutes of peace and a night of regret. If you do not answer in the next 60 seconds what actually breaks someone else's illusion of control or your habit of renting out your life by the minute, who taught you that speed is love and that delay is betrayal? When guilt spikes like a siren, is it conscience or conditioning demanding tribute again? Look at what has been exiled to keep you nice: anger that should guard the door, appetite that should size your yes, rest that should power your truth. Who profits from your predictability while those capacities starve in the hall? If you gave yourself a lawful interval, one long, steady exhale, a counted pause, what would surface first inside that small vessel? Panic, clarity, or both? And if one brief sentence sent later is truer than 10 sent now, why are you still paying in apologies? This is the hinge. Availability without proportion is not kindness. It is a leak. The correction is powerfully ordinary, a container, not a wall, a pause you can measure, one worn, keepable line, delivered when you said, "I'll review at 9 a.m." Will you keep selling your evenings for relief, or will you let cadence return to a self that can carry opposites, speech and silence, generosity and limit, without splitting hinge, one door, hours, channels, or tone, and let it swing only on purpose? The moment you stop being reflexively available, everything begins to change. You live inside an economy that mistakes speed for virtue. Always on becomes a personality, then a leash. Jung's warning fits the moment. What you refuse does not vanish. It organizes fate. When you answer on command, who is actually speaking in you? The self that can carry opposites, or a complex chasing quick relief? Who taught you to treat adrenaline as importance and guilt as proof of love? If predictability is leverage, who has been spending you by tugging the same handle every night? Name the architecture honestly. Persona, your acceptable mask, stays overfed by instant replies. Shadow, disowned strengths, goes hungry and then misbehaves. Projection floods the field. Others pace their need onto you, and you perform the role to avoid their disappointment. The loop is simple and brutal. Cue, reaction, relief, reinforcement. How many mornings have you paid for a midnight yes with resentment and repair? How many explanations were really pleas for permission to have a limit? Jung offers proportion, not retreat. A boundary in this register is a moral technology, not a wall that punishes, but a container that protects people and truth by giving time a lawful shape. The container is small and repeatable, 60 to 120 seconds, with a longer exhale, so the observing ego returns, and from it leaves one brief, keepable line. Your morning self will respect. I'll review at 9 a.m. Could one sentence sent later be kinder and more reliable than 10 sent now to quiet your nerves? Context extends beyond you. Workplaces canonize instant and convert attention into a commons to be rated. Families confuse love with access. Group chats elevate panic to pastime. Will you keep subsidizing that economy with your nervous system, or will you publish Windows Reserve urgent for calls and normalize decisions in daylight? Which door, hours, channels, or tone needs hinges tonight so it swings only on purpose? Begin there. One lawful pause, one honest line, one return on schedule. When you stop being reflexively available, energy recollects, projection falls, and your word regains weight. The house you live in, your psyche, starts to feel governable again. Begin with the map, because without it, you mistake reflex for virtue. Jung's topology gives you coordinates. Ego as the day manager that says, I, the personal unconscious, as the storeroom of forgotten and avoided material, the collective unconscious as the deep aquifer of patterns older than you, and the self as the regulating center that can hold opposites without splitting. When you answer on command, is it the self speaking or the ego chasing relief because a light blinked? When guilt rises like a siren, is that conscience or the day manager defending its schedule of being liked? Persona comes next. It is the mask you present to transact with the world, necessary and limited. In the always-on economy, you have been taught to inflate this mask into a life. Fast replies, polished tone, agreeable availability, useful traits until they metastasize into a rule. If I slow down, love will leave. An overfed persona steals oxygen from everything else, and your nights begin to sound like apology emails written to keep the mask glossy. Ask plainly who taught you that speed is love. Who profits when your mask never sleeps? Across from the mask stands the shadow, not only your disowned vices, but your unclaimed virtues. Anger belongs here when you have moralized it into shame. Appetite belongs here when you have renamed it selfishness. Rest belongs here when you have treated it as defect. What you exile does not die, it sabotages. Anger, refused the job of doorkeeper, becomes explosion or collapse. Appetite, denied the task of sizing commitments, becomes binge or drift. Rest, stripped of dignity, becomes a body that breaks down precisely when you need truth. The correction is not repression, it is reassignment. Can you let anger guard a threshold without turning it into a weapon? Can you let appetite size your yes so your yes regains weight? Can you let rest supply wattage so you stop mortgaging tomorrow to buy calm tonight? Complexes are the nuts that tie all this together. They are semi-autonomous bundles of affect and memory that seize the wheel when a cue resembles an old wound. A message labeled urgent, a tone that mimics a parent's disappointment, a silence that echoes an old exclusion. Suddenly the loop runs, cue, reaction, relief, reinforcement. Every quick reply feels like safety. Every delay feels like exile. Unless you recognize the complex, you'll baptize panic as duty. The smallest temenos, a 60 to 120-second pause with an elongated exhale, returns the observing ego and gives the self jurisdiction. In that interval, you can ask the only questions that matter. What is mine? What is theirs? What belongs between us? Which part of me has the mic right now? A complex or the self-projection? Distorts the field just as predictably. Others paste their needs onto you and call it your responsibility. You paste your fear of rejection onto others and call it their demand. Availability becomes the stage on which both sides rehearse old scenes. Differentiation, sorting yours, theirs, between shrinks projection by forcing ownership. Without this scrub, you will call self-betrayal kindness and call other people's discomfort evidence that you are cruel. Will you risk being briefly misunderstood so you can stop being chronically misaligned with yourself? Compensation and enteodromia are the psyche's balancing laws. One-sided adaptation provokes its opposite. The more you speed to prove love, the more your life bends towards stall or blowout. The moment you pause, backlash arrives externally as tugging hands, internally as panic. Reading this as law rather than doom keeps you steady. Hold the interval, speak one brief keepable line on schedule, and the arc stabilizes into a middle path, not withdrawal, not appeasement, but proportion. Can you endure the weather of compensation for a week so a climate can change? Anima and animus, your inner principles of relatedness and discernment, complete the grammar. Relatedness finds tone warmth that keeps doors from becoming walls. Discernment sets time decisions in daylight, not from flood. When relatedness rules alone, you offer endless empathy with no edges and drown. When discernment rules alone, you issue brittle law with no heart and fracture. The self seats them at one table so that you can say, "I care. I will not decide by text. Let's talk at 9 a.m." Which side do you over-rely on under heat? And what would rebalancing change in the next sentence? Temenos is the container that makes all of this practicable. It is the time-limited vessel in which charge cools into choice. In daily life, it looks unromantic. A 90-second breath, a one-line reply at a named hour, an after-hours rule that routes urgent to a call, a household norm that forbids conflict resolution while flooded. A container is not a wall. Walls punish and inflate projection. Containers protect persons and truth. How do you know which you are building? Motive and follow-through. Are you seeking proportion or dominance? Do you return when you said you would? Finally, symbol and dream carry instructions simple enough to survive heat. A torch, name the cue and the complex. Dogs trust early somatic warnings, jaw, breath, pulse. Keys govern access channels and hours. Crossroads hold the interval where choice becomes possible. Offering attention, restraint, one true line. Treat synchronicities as weather, encouraging, not sovereign. Will you rehearse these images in calm so they are reachable when the room tilts? This is the foundation, a topology that restores scale, a mask that is softened, a shadow that is employed, knots that are named, projections that are owned, balancing laws that are endured, inner partners that coordinate, a vessel that protects truth, and images that keep the method intelligible under pressure. From here, the mechanism becomes straightforward. Pause. Differentiate. Reassign. Speak one keepable line. Return when named repair. Briefly when you miss. If you refuse to be rented by urgency and you govern your doors on purpose, what becomes possible in your work, your house, your city? That one more late night, yes, could never buy. It's 11:37 p.m. The subject line reads, "Need this tonight." Your pulse spikes, your jaw sets, your thumbs hover. The old loop wants to run cue, reaction, relief, reinforcement. You feel the familiar bargain rise. If you answer now, the heat drops. If you wait, someone is disappointed, and the night grows loud. Ask cleanly who is speaking in you, self or complex. Is this conscience or the conditioning that equates speed with love? You turn the screen face down and install a micro temenos. 90 seconds. 4, in 4, hold 6 out. The exhale lengthens, and with it a thin aisle of choice. In that aisle you run triage. What is yours? What is theirs? What belongs between? What is yours? A commitment to do good work in daylight. What is theirs? Poor planning framed as emergency. What lies between? A timeline you can keep without betraying tomorrow. The persona wants a polished paragraph. The self prefers a sentence. Which voice will you honor? You script one line you can live with in the morning. I'll review at 9 a.m. and confirm ETA by 9:30. Not a pleading essay, not a ghostly silence. Warmth without surrender. You schedule it for the morning and return to bed. The complex panics. What if they think you don't care? But the breath holds the line. A dream comes shallow and sharp. You stand at a crossroads with a small torch. A key is heavy in your pocket. You wake with a single action, publish reply, windows on your calendar. Morning arrives, you deliver exactly what you promised. No apology, no drama, just the work on time. At noon, a colleague says, "Thanks for the clarity." You log this as weather, not worship. Who profits when your yes is honest at the front end? Who loses when your yes is a bribe for peace? The second test is familial. "We always count on you," the text reads at 10:08 p.m., wrapped in nostalgia and guilt. You feel the tug, years of being the reliable one. You breathe. Jaw breath, pulse, dogs at the threshold. You reply on schedule the next day, I care. I won't plan by text at night. I'll call at 6 to coordinate Saturday's help. You place the call at 6. You name 2 hours you can truly give. You keep them. The projection shifts. You are no longer the bottomless well. You are a person with edges. Is your love smaller, or is it finally measurable? A romantic pull arrives on Friday. If you cared, you'd answer now. The line is baited with devotion and threat. You breathe, remembering the difference between container and wall. You choose container, I care. I won't decide while flooded. Let's talk after work tomorrow. You mark a window, then keep it full attention, no multitask. The conversation is steadier than your old midnight firefights. What did your previous speed? Purchase, confusion. By the end of week 1, compensation appears like clockwork. A manager drops disappointed into a sentence. A sibling sends 3 question marks. Your body offers a surge of doubt. You name it weather. You keep your windows. You return when you said you would. You repair once briefly when you miss. I answered from flood. It muddied the call. Here is the cadence going forward. Shame wants an opera. Responsibility wants a sentence. Which will you feed? Week 2, small structures accrue. You retire one noisy channel. You enable Do Not Disturb by default. Urgent means call becomes a line in your email signature. You pin 4 sentences at eye level. I'll review in the morning. No decisions over text. These timelines work. That doesn't work for me. You install one wild yes that keeps your eros engaged. A project you can love, so your limits serve life rather than defend image. Does your day feel colder or more alive? At work, predictability begins to rewire the room. Urgent becomes a call, not 5 rapid texts. People tell you what they will do and when. Meetings migrate to daylight. The team starts using your language decisions when calm because it reduces rework and resentment. You explain the loop to a new hire, you hand them the lexicon, you point to the posted windows. You are converting ethics into hygiene. Who needed your clarity so they could stop borrowing your nervous system? In your body metrics shift. Resentment thins from a siren to a hum. Sorry for the delay emails disappear because the delay was declared at the front end. Sleep gains minutes. Dreams grow specific doorways instead of mazes, keys instead of crowds. The tone of your yes thickens. Less sugar, more wood. You feel less spectacular and more credible. When a real emergency lands, you have wattage, no bargaining, no covert tab. Is this not what you wanted when you said you needed peace? Then the edge case arrives. Someone wields boundaries as a cudgel, punitive silence, not containered delay. You check motive and follow through the 2 moral tests. Are they seeking proportion or dominance? Do they return when they say they will? Goodwill fails, harm repeats. You enact consequence without venom. Fewer channels, altered roles, distance. You do not salt the earth, you stop watering a desert. Will you choose the discomfort of consequence over the slow cruelty of appeasement? By the close of week 2, the city's grid hums. Sirens still pass, they do not own your night. You end each day with a brief audit. What pulled you hardest? What held you best? What will you alter tomorrow? You tighten a window by 30 minutes. You retire a thread that never ends. You warm one line by a degree. You tape your anchor where your thumb rests. I do not answer from flood. I answer from a center I can live with in the morning. Now the deciding questions come back narrow and bright. Which door will you hinge tonight? Hours, channels, or tone? Which single sentence can your morning self respect enough to keep? Who needs to hear your windows so they can trust you rather than tug you? When pushback arrives as law, not verdict, will you mistake weather for morality? Or will you hold the interval and return when you said you would? And when shadow offers its labor, anger at the door, appetite in the planner. Rest in the calendar, will you hire it? Keep answering even one of those questions under heat, and the example stops being a story, it becomes jurisdiction. You are not less loving, you are making love durable. When you stop being reflexively available, everything inside you and around you rearranges to fit the truth you finally live. The door that was once kicked open by alarm or bolted by pride now swings on hinges you installed, opening when it should, closing when it must, protecting the living on both sides. Mechanism begins where heat is highest the first minute. You install a physiological brake before you install a story. The slow, elongated exhale recruits the vagal system. Arousal drops a notch. The observing ego returns. That biological downshift is not ornament, it is jurisdiction. Without it, complexes drive, and you purchase relief at the price of tomorrow. With it, the self can set cadence. Ask yourself in real time, is this surge asking for action or oxygen? If you spend 60 seconds on breath now, what catastrophe actually occurs out there, or only in the narrative that equates delay with betrayal? Once arousal falls, cognition can do its clean work. You run differentiation, yours, theirs, between like a scrub. What is yours to own now? What is theirs to manage? What belongs in a negotiated middle? Projection shrinks when ownership clarifies. Drama loses its fuel because everything becomes this. You are not refusing care, you are refusing confusion. The question becomes precise. What single promise can you keep without mortgaging the morning, and what single projection will you return to sender? With the field cleared, energy can be reassigned. Shadow is not a saboteur to be banished, but a workforce to be hired. Anger moves from explosion to doorkeeping, not tonight, as protection, not punishment. Appetite sizes, commitments, 2-hour Saturday, not anything you need. Rest becomes a power plant wattage for truth rather than a guilty luxury. This reassignment is the hinge that keeps boundaries from becoming walls. Are you willing to let anger guard appetite, measure, and rest power? Or will you keep burning virtue for heat you do not have? Next language exits the container one brief, warm, keepable line. You do not preach, you timestamp. I'll review at 9 a.m. and confirm by 9:30. This is more than etiquette. It is reinforcement engineering. Each kept line shifts the reward from quick relief, answer now, to durable presence, answer then, and deliver. The nervous system learns delay is not danger. The group learns your time is real. In behavioral terms, prediction errors resolve in your favor. Others stop tugging the old handle because that door no longer opens. Which reward will you train toward your adrenaline's relief tonight or your credibility's ballast tomorrow? Backlash is not failure. It is physics, compensation, and enantiodromia doing their neutral work. After a one-sided era of yes, now the pendulum wants to swing hard to no ever. Your job is to arrest the swing in proportion. You read pushback, disappointed, changed, unavailable as weather, not verdict, and you return when you said you would. The system recalibrates precisely because you do not flinch or gloat. Will you misread weather as moral law, or will you let the storm pass and keep your schedule? Ethics guards the mechanism from curdling. The same act's delay, silence, distance can be container or wall depending on motive and follow-through. You test your line twice. Was I seeking proportion or dominance? Did I return when I said I would? Containered silence protects persons and truth. Punitive silence punishes and inflates projection. Where goodwill holds, you civilize conflict by cadence. Where goodwill fails or harm repeats, you enact consequence. Fewer channels, altered roles, distance without venom. Which discomfort will you choose, the brief sting of consequence now, or the chronic corrosion of appeasement later? At scale, the micro-temenus becomes culture. Predictable windows urgent means call no conflict resolution, while flooded and decisions in daylight distribute responsibility and lower ambient panic. Socially, this is how projection falls. When norms are posted, no one has to read your mind or rent your nervous system. Attention becomes a commons with rules rather than a resource seized by whoever shouts first. What single norm could you publish this week so your private hygiene stops dying in public chaos? Symbol keeps the choreography reachable when heat rises. Torch, name the cue and the complex savior reflex abandonment alarm. Dogs trust somatic early warnings, jaw, breath, pulse. Keys govern access hours and channels, have grades, not master keys. Crossroads hold the interval, no decisions while flooded, offering one true line on schedule. These 5 words are not superstition. They are compression, a pocket script that survives adrenaline. Will you rehearse them in calm so they are available when the room tilts? The feedback loop closes nightly. You audit 3 things: what pulled you hardest, what held you best, what you will alter tomorrow. You tighten a window, retire a noisy thread, or warm the tone by a degree. You praise repair as much as flawless execution, because the point is governance, not perfection. Your metrics are human and stubbornly practical. Resentment thins. Apology emails vanish. Sleep gains minutes. Dreams sharpen the grain of your yes, hardens from sugar to wood. If you believe what you measure, what will you count? Likes and drama, or promises kept and minutes slept? That is the mechanism in full physiological break, cognitive scrub, shadow reassignment, one-line contact on schedule, reinforcement flip, ethical guardrails, cultural scaffolding, imaginal shorthand, nightly feedback. Nothing mystical, everything lawful. The door that used to be kicked open by alarm or bolted by pride begins to swing on hinges you installed, opening when it should, closing when it must, protecting the living on both sides. So ask yourself before the next pang arrives, which door will you hinge tonight? Hours, channels, or tone? Which single sentence can your morning self respect enough to keep? And when the pushback comes right on time, will you mistake weather for morality? Or will you hold the interval and let the self set cadence? Make the work small, repeatable, and scheduled. Everything turns on the first minute. When the glass lights up or a voice floods your chest, you do 3 things in order. First, breathe on a 4-4-6 rhythm for 90 seconds. Your job is not insight, your job is oxygen. Second, name the cue and the complex savior reflex abandonment alarm status panic. Third, run the triage, yours, theirs, between. Only after those 3 do you touch the keys. Write your lines in advance so heat cannot write them for you. Keep them brief, warm, and keepable. I'll review at 9 a.m. and confirm by 9:30. No decisions over text. If urgent, call. That doesn't work for me. Here are 2 options that do. Post them by your desk mirror and lock screen. The less you improvise in flood, the more trustworthy you become in daylight. Which sentence can your morning self respect enough to keep? Install rails so your nervous system isn't your only defense. Publish reply windows where people can see them: email footer, chat status, team charter. Reserve urgent for calls. Retire midnight threads that never end. Batch notifications to top of hour. Create an escalation tree. If it's X, it goes here. If it's Y, speak in person. Inside your house, teach no conflict resolution while flooded and decisions in daylight. The point is not control. The point is choreography. What single norm could you publish this week so your private hygiene stops dying in public chaos? Set doors on hinges, hours, channels, tone, and guard the keys. Hours after hours goes to 9 a.m. unless safety is at risk. Channels: one work channel for requests, one personal channel for family. No business in disappearing DMs. Tone: warm brevity over anxious essays, curiosity before defense. When someone tugs an old handle, you do not litigate the past. You point to the door. Here are my windows, I'll respond then. Are you willing to let a posted policy carry the weight your willpower cannot carry at 11:37 p.m.? Reassign shadow to salaried roles so your limits serve life. Anger stands at the door. Not tonight. Appetite runs the planner. 2 hours Saturday, not 3 projects at once. Rest powers truth. I'm offline now, I'll be sharper in the morning. You are not becoming cold, you are becoming governed. Which capacity will you hire first? Anger as doorkeeper, appetite as surveyor of scale, or rest as power plant? Treat repair as part of the choreography, not a referendum on your worth. You will miss. When you send from flood or vanish behind a wall, repair briefly and adjust the scaffold. I answered while flooded, it muddied the call. Going forward, I'll reply at 9 a.m. Then change something real tighten, a window, silence a thread, move a meeting, tape a line where your thumb rests. Shame wants an opera, responsibility wants a system. Which will you reward? Keep the myth pocketable so it holds when the room tilts. Whisper the 5 words: torch, dogs, keys, crossroads, offering. Torch: name the cue and the complex. Dogs trust jaw, breath, pulse before the story. Keys govern access hours and channels have grades, not master keys. Crossroads hold the interval, no decisions while flooded. Offering: give one true line and return when you said you would. 5 words, 1 choreography. Will you rehearse them in calm tonight so you can reach them at heat's first spike? Run daily drills that take minutes, not hours. Morning: 2 breaths, 1 line. Reviewed windows, posted, 1 wild, yes, chosen, so your limits guard something alive. Midday: a 2-minute projection audit after any hot exchange. What was mine? What was theirs? What belongs between? Evening: a 2-minute dream or day image note. Title, figure, tone, 1 action and 1 shelf check. Did I return when I said I would? Weekly: a 60 to 90-minute Sabbath block, no incoming, devoted to pruning channels, updating if-then rules, and praising any repair you or your team did well. Teach what you practice so others can cooperate instead of collide with you. Explain the loop cue, reaction, relief, reinforcement, and why you are changing it. Demonstrate the micropause. Hand out the 1-line lexicon. Show the escalation tree. Normalize correction as skill building, not moral failure. Praise kept lines out loud. Culture changes when proportion becomes visible and rewarded. Who needs this grammar from you now, partner, child, peer? So your boundary is not an eccentricity, but a norm. Measure what actually reflects health. Track resentment as a weekly number from 1 to 10. Count sorry for the delay emails, watch them fall because you told the truth up front. Note minutes of sleep gained and the specificity of dreams. Listen to the grain of your yes, less sugar, more wood. Notice how often urgent becomes a call, not a string of pings. If you believe what you measure, what will you count? Dopamine and drama, or promises kept and minutes slept? Face edge cases with steady hands. The chronic escalator: you repeat cadence once, then route to consequence, fewer channels, altered roles, distance without venom. The apologetic saboteur in you: trade 3 paragraphs for 1 clean line and schedule the context for daylight. The righteous wall builder in you: reintroduce warmth and a return time, convert wall back into container. The high-stakes negotiation separate bargaining from boundary. We can discuss price, we do not negotiate midnight texts. Are you willing to be briefly misunderstood so you can be trustworthy over time? Close the day the way you want tomorrow to begin. 2 questions on paper. What pulled me hardest? What held me best? 1 decision. Which hinge do I adjust? Hours, channels, or tone? 1 oath, retaped, where your thumb rests. I do not answer from flood. I answer from a center I can live with in the morning. Then keep it once. Keep it twice. Let repetition teach your nervous system and your circle that delay is not danger, cadence is not cruelty, and your word is a place someone can stand. When the next ping arrives, and it will you spend yourself at the speed of someone else's alarm, or will you govern your house and let everything change? You have the rails, the ritual, and the reason. Breath before speech. Triage before rescue. 1 keepable line on schedule. Return when named. Repair without opera. Consequence without cruelty where goodwill fails. Teach the grammar so others can cooperate. That is the choreography by which availability stops being a currency and becomes a decision. Are you willing to live by a cadence you can respect in the morning rather than a pace that flatters you at night? Name what this is not. Retreat. Governance. You are not becoming harder. You are becoming less steerable by alarm. Shadow works a day job. Anger at the door, appetite in the planner, rest in the calendar. Persona serves rather than rules. The self sets time so truth can be told without harm. If you kept this for 1 week, just 1, what would change first? The tone of your yes? The weight of your sleep? Or the way urgent returns to being rare? Expect compensation like weather. Let it pass without surrender. People tug the old handle because it used to open you. Your body protests because it used to be paid in relief. Will you misread that weather as a moral verdict, or will you hold the interval and return when you said you would? Which error will you choose? Being briefly misunderstood or being chronically misaligned with yourself? Act now, small and exacting. Tonight, write 1 boundary you will keep for 24 hours. Post your reply windows where others can see them. Install 1 after-hours if-then rule. Choose 1 wild yes worth protecting so your limits serve life, not image. Tape your anchor where your thumb rests. I do not answer from flood. I answer from a center I can live with in the morning. Who needs to hear that sentence from you? Partner, child, team, so their trust can rest on your pattern, not your speed. Close with jurisdiction. Doors open and close on purpose. Attention becomes a commons with rules. Your word becomes a place someone can stand. When the next ping arrives, and it will you spend yourself at the speed of someone else's alarm? Or will you govern your house and let everything change?